Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting of December 13th, 2023 at 6 o'clock in the legislative chambers. Call to order. I need a motion for the approval of minutes from November 8th. Please.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Privilege of the floor. Do we have anybody that's willing to? No? Okay. Got nobody? Moving ahead. Our first proposed resolution. Can you introduce yourself for the audience, please?
I'm Lauren Sharp. I'm a junior planner with the Department of Planning and Development.
Okay, good. Good to have you. Let me read the resolution, then you can talk about it, okay? Proposed resolution. Confirm reappointment and appointment to the Chautauqua County Ag and Farmland Protection Board.
So the first thing I'm going to do is actually ask for this resolution to be amended. At this time, we want to just pull Will Northrup's name. He didn't get his bioform in time with the pre-file and Thanksgiving holiday, so I'd just like to request if you would amend it and just actually reappoint James Joy at this time.
Okay, do I have a motion to amend the resolution?
I'll make the motion, Chair.
I'll second it.
Okay. All signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay, so we'll act on your reappointment of James Joy.
Yep, so great farmer from Westfield, active with Welch's Co-op, active with Farm Bureau, active member on the Ag Board, so we'd like to keep him, and he agreed to stay with us.
Great. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. The second resolution, confirm reappointments and appointments to the Chautauqua County Planning Board.
So the first one's a reappointment for Courtney. She's the executive director of the Small Business Development Center at JCC, resident of Bemis Point, active member with the board, agreed to stay with us. Melissa Myers, small business owner, active with the arts in the county, also from Bemis Point, agreed to stay with us. Bethany O'Hagan was just recently appointed to fill a term. There was the wrong year was put on the end of her term, so this one is only for 1 year to keep our rotation correct.
Great.
So you just heard about her 2 months ago maybe.
Okay.
But she's from Jamestown, works for CWC as a land manager. And then we have two new appointments. The first one is Heather White. She's replacing Charles Patton. She's the owner of Triple E Manufacturing in Sherman, lives in the Clymer, French Creek area, active with the school district, and we were looking for a rep from that part of the county. She was recommended by Legislative Proctor. Amy Rogers is replacing Bernie Auer. She is from Hanover, active, well, she's going to be elected January 1st. She was elected to the Hanover Town Board, previously on their planning board, actively involved with Imagine Forestville, the Chamber of Commerce up there, and came recommended out of the county exec's office.
Great. Sounds like you got a nice bunch. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody for the soil and water?
Right here.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. We got the big cheese.
Yeah,
Forgive me.
man.
Okay, I'll read it. Confirm reappointment, Chautauqua County Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Directors. The floor is yours.
So, I don't know if you guys know Pierre Chagnon.
Yeah, we've heard of him.
Wonderful, wonderful man, intelligent, good leader.
Suck up. Something caught in your throat?
Excuse me.
And Lisa Vanstrom, wonderful woman, great person, really competent. So, yeah, they're looking to be reappointed to the Soil and Water Conservation District. We all know that they do a great job, boots on the ground, a lot of watershed projects, and so great organization.
Okay, great. Any questions? All signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Number 4, confirm reappointments to Southern Tier West Regional Planning and Development Board.
So, PJ Wendell, incredible man. No, yeah, he obviously know all these people. PJ, Tom, Rebecca is the planning coordinator. Don McCord worked for the county for a long time. He's up in Westfield now, so they're all looking for reappointments on the Southern Tier West Regional Planning and Development Board. the Southern Tier West is really an agent for federal EDA money coming into the region. And, so, good organization.
And did they meet quarterly? Or is it monthly? Monthly?
Yeah.
In Salamanca?
Yep.
Wow, okay. That's dedication right there.
It's all about the money, yeah.
Any questions, any comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Number 5, proposed resolution, confirm reappointment to the Southern Tier Extension Railroad Authority Board of Directors.
Rich Dixon, the CFO of the IDA, has been for over 20 years. I don't know how long he's been on Stira, but quite some time. So he's got has a lot of good contacts with the railroad, and which serves us well. So this is a good reappointment as well.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Number 6, confirm reappointments. County Chautauqua Industrial Development Agency Board of Directors.
Dan Heitzenreiter, President of the Chamber of Commerce. Amy Harding, a new appointment to the board. She's from Lakeshore Savings and Loan, has been with them for a very long time. Gary Henry, the President of Fancher Chair. Steve Thorpe is a member of the union. And Brad Walters is the Executive Director of BEST, the Building Exchange of the Southern Tier. And so they're all great members of our board.
Questions, any comments? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Number 7, proposed resolution authorizing the submittal of a New York State Community Development Block Grant application for the micro enterprise assistance. I hear footsteps.
Nate Aldrich, Economic Development Coordinator, and I'll hand it over to Stephanie to discuss this.
Okay.
Hi, Stephanie Nick, Special Projects Coordinator with the Planning and Development Department in Chautauqua County.
Great. Good to have you.
Thank you.
Floor is yours.
Great. So this is just a request to authorize the submittal of the grant application for the CDBG grant application. So it's a micro enterprise grant. We spoke on this last month. There was the public hearing for it. And so now that is complete. We are just looking to submit the grant to the funding agency.
Okay.
If I could just add to that too,
Sure.
Cody, which is Chautauqua Opportunities for Development, this is really the second round. So they were already awarded $200,000 some years ago. They lent that out to about 8 companies, and it's really startups. It sort of fills a niche that the IDA doesn't, because they're really
They're
small
small,
loans.
right? Yeah.
And so they proved themselves out, and now they want to re-up and go for some more money, help some more companies.
Yeah, absolutely. So the micro enterprise businesses are businesses that are owned by and employ low to moderate income people in the county. It's available to everyone in the county outside of the entitlement communities of Jamestown and Dunkirk. They are small grants, and the micro enterprise grant also has to create a minimum of 1 full-time job in the community that it's opened.
Great.
I'll just add, Mr. Chairman, real quickly, again, as Mark said, it's a small but effective tool. And great partnership with Cody. And then I just wanted to give a shout out to the legislative staff, especially Olivia and Christy, just because there's a lot involved with a lot of the public hearing requirements and documentation we need to provide, and just wanted to acknowledge them as well.
Great. I'm glad you did. I'm a board member of over 20 years on the Cody board member, so I'm very familiar, very proud, and glad you're going for some more cash. So, any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, is this the only funding that Cody gets?
Cody.
This 200, Cody? Is this the only funding source that they get, or are there others that they apply for?
So they obviously have other funding. This is the only one that I'm aware of that is county. It's not necessarily county funding, but the county is the pass-through for the state funds.
Could you give me an example of one of the industries that we've helped?
One great example, Village of Faulkner, Persnickety Pies.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Nikki Pierce, again, we helped her with a forgivable loan to purchase equipment and renovate that storefront. And honestly, now, after that, she participated in initiative we led over this summer, downtown revitalization master planning process in Faulkner, volunteered on the committee, really engaged, great success story, and good opportunity to see our work come full circle, so.
There are a number of Jamestown restaurants, I think, over the years that been helped. It's a small thing, it's 75,000 and below, wasn't it?
Max of 35,000.
35,000.
Yeah, there was also a local psychologist who was awarded funding to furnish her office last year, and she's really excellent, very nice lady. She does trauma therapy, which is a really needed and essential thing in the county. It's actually it's really hard to find a trauma therapist. They're quite rare, and so it was really good to help her to expand to a second office. So she's got one in Jamestown and one in Faulkner now.
Nice, very good. Any other questions, comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you. Number 8, authorize the use of 3% occupancy tax reserve and amend 2024 budget to enhance programming for the Chautauqua County Visitors Bureau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before we go through number 7, 8, and 9, I just wanted to give a quick preamble because they are sort of related resolutions. Again, as this committee is aware, back during 2020 when the pandemic hit, we amended our budgets and then budgeted conservatively the next year due to the unknowns in the tourism travel industry. Fortunately, our revenues exceeded expectations, and we were able to significantly build up the 3% occupancy tax reserve.
Great.
So earlier this summer, the county executive charged our department with discussing with stakeholders and others what priorities and strategic initiatives we could come up with to really strategically invest some of that reserve down. So that's what you'll see in the next 3 resolutions. This one in particular, again, CCVB does a great job. We had to cut their contract back in 2020, 2021. Fortunately, we were able to supplement that with some ARPA funding. But again, one of the initiatives we partnered with them with is audience analysis, which was undertaken earlier this year through the spring and summer. And again, working with the county executive's office and the Visitors Bureau Board, and specifically Andrew Nixon, we sort of charged them to come up with how to strategically invest an additional $100,000 in additional programming, marketing, and key markets, including Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Ontario. So that's what that $100,000 will be invested in.
Great. Okay. Any questions and comments?
I just want to put in my support for Andrew Nixon and the Visitors Bureau. They're amazing, and I have so much respect and admiration for what they do. So I'm happy to support anything that helps them.
Great. Anybody? All in favor? Signify.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks. Number 9, authorize use of 3% reserve funding and authorize agreement with Chautauqua Regional Economic Development Corporation to initiate a public art program. You have a new person at the, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, Rebecca Worster, Planning Coordinator for the Department of Planning and Development.
Good to have you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This resolution, to piggyback on Nate's nice intro, is the second request to utilize the 3% reserve. We've heard a lot about the importance in public art in our communities, and so we want to develop a 2-pronged program. The first part would be looking at a large-scale chair project. This large-scale selfie chair would create Instagrammable moments that reflect the community's tie to the furniture industry and reflect the historic chair design relevant to that area where that chair would be located in.
Oh, cool.
So I don't know if you've seen in the city of Jamestown, they have a large-scale chair. We've been working kind of with Gary Henry to get some ideas on that, but we'd like to do 5 to 6 locations throughout the county that would be reflective of that community and the furniture industry and celebrate that. So, you know, yeah, and those large scale Adirondack ones, stuff like that, but specific to our communities. So that would be one of the programs. And then the other one that we're really excited about is a mural program. We're calling the program Paint CHQ or Paint Chautauqua, which would implement 5 to 6 murals throughout the county. This would be a public art program that would include working with our communities, property owners, and high caliber mural artists to develop unique murals that really enhance the community and encourage tourism and commerce, create distinct senses of place. So when you get to that mural, you're like, wow, this is really unique to our community. You know, displays a real sense of pride in the community and the identity of that community, engages with our community, attracts attention and economic benefits, enhances our public art appreciation, creates a platform for storytelling and education, and brings in some talent attraction and retention. So on a regional level, the mural program will really create some unity among communities within the county and create public art tourism. We're thinking about doing a mapping portion of this, so that we'll map these new murals, but we'll also map all of our existing murals, so it'll create a real sense of tourism to come and go to the different places throughout the map throughout our county. And give some national media attention too. We want to bring nationally recognized artists, but we don't want to forget our local ones as well. So we're also going to look at an apprenticeship program, so that mural artist that is nationally or even internationally known will be doing the mural, but we'll have local apprenticeship opportunities. So this could be a pilot project for future mural programs. And we're really excited about it. It'll be about a 2-week period in September is what we're kind of thinking, that timing-wise it looks like. And we would celebrate each mural, do some artist talks, apprenticeship opportunities. I think it'll be a great opportunity for the community to really celebrate public art.
Nice, very nice.
That's a great idea.
I do see people taking pictures in front of the chairs in Jamestown, and also I think probably something you had to do with in the Dunkirk Harbor with the big chair there. So it's kind of nice to see like tourism, people taking pictures, so great idea. Any other comments or questions?
Ask about the mural
Yes.
program. Are there other communities or areas that are doing this that you could pattern off of?
We mirrored this off of Lewiston County. They're by the Finger Lakes. They have a very similar program. City of Buffalo is through the Arkwright Institute, runs a wonderful mural program. But Lewiston, we got a lot of the details on how they ran their program, kind of looking at this
And
one.
how will you decide like where they will be and what the themes are? I like your idea about the maps of here we are and we're gonna follow this.
Yep.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's important to really have an impactful location, visible, attractive location. You know, we're thinking right now villages and cities are kind of our first go-to. But again, this is kind of a pilot, so maybe in the future we could do more rural settings as well. And then as far as the specific mural, what we would do is we would develop creative briefs. So we would work with the community and say, give us 4 to 5 ideas. And then that artist takes those ideas and develops 2 to 3 concepts that the community can then agree on. So you're not compromising the artist and their art. They still can, you know, interpret those through that design, but you still maintain the integrity of the artist and what they want to do as well.
Yeah.
So
Zuniga had something come up on one of the buildings.
Yes.
In the four corners there.
yeah.
Because if we can get local artists involved, that would help give ownership to what the pictures are and feeling that. I know that there were some paintings that went up on some of the buildings on North Main Street, south of going down into Brooklyn Square, that were not local artists. And I heard a lot of complaints about that, and people were not happy that they picked people that weren't from around here when we have a lot of good artists. So if you are bringing in national artists, like you said, if you could fold in local people as apprentice, or to be part of it or part of the planning or the design, you want to have communities have ownership of the pictures. I think that's really important.
I 100% agree, yeah.
So is
Yes.
Chair. I would echo that sentiment from my esteemed colleague, just to make sure that this first go-around is focused on local artists as if we're just starting out, to make sure, I heard the same thing for those same specific murals at that time that it happened. I personally like the murals, especially one in the Village of Casadega, and the restaurant there at the Four Corners, and obviously the ones downtown related to Lucy Desi and all that. I think those are all great things, and it is all part of the overall tourism and art industry. And $100,000 is a lot of money, so I assume that's going to be used for paying artists, paying companies to design, build, install these physical structures, the chairs, and so on and so forth. It's just a lot of money, but in your overall concept of how this is all going to blend together, I think I can support it. But, that local focus on the local artists, because we have Chautauqua Institution brings in all these national artists, so it's a balancing act, the combination with that body within the county. But there has to be a lot of starving artists out there that are looking for a shot, and maybe this is the shot in arm that they need right now. Not to say that if you come to us next year, and just a thought. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Wilfong?
Well, I'm going to take a different route. Like $100,000 we're talking about. I think that's an awful lot of money to be spending on an art program. When I say here, I think my God list of planning and economic development of the Ripley site. I mean, that is what I think government is about. I am not in favor of spending $100,000 on an art program.
See, and I don't
Now,
see that.
I'm not knocking, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, that's an awful lot of money. If you want to bring up the city of Jamestown, you know the problems. We got people sleeping in the viaducts. Drug use is rampant in the city. I think the government money could be spent on a different, somewhere else. You could give that $100,000 to the 4-H and make a real difference.
Unfortunately, Mr. Wolfong, this is on a 3% program.
Oh, no, I'm just talking amongst
Sure.
friends at a bar. At a bar.
So moving along.
I'm just saying, it's a lot of money, I think, and I'm not gonna support it.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna badmouth it, but I'm not gonna support it.
And you'd be surprised, 100,000 sounds like a lot, but that's roughly 5 to 6 murals that it's gonna get us, not even almost, because we're also including the chair project. So you have to think about paying the artist. Prepping the wall costs almost as much as painting a mural. There's a lot of components involved that you don't think about. And public art has an economic development impact. That brings tourism. That brings a lot of people to communities. That brings sense of pride and could really change a piece of the area and its community. So you got to think about those aspects too.
Excuse me, it is part of that 3%. So if this was coming out of a different pot of money, I would tend to agree with Mr. Wolfong. But it's not, and this is what we can use it for. And we do this, there's other aspects. It's in the arts program within the county, but there are other forms of art and artists that we have to remain cognizant of, that next year, hey, we try this program with this group, we're all artists, we just gotta make sure that it's, but if you're focusing on the villages in the cities, and that's typically where the draws are going to be. I just look at the village of Bemis Point. I just look at the village of Casadega with Casadega Lakes there. You do the village of Clymer. They have so many great things going on in Clymer. Sherman, village of Westfield. The first of each month during the summer. Man, that draws a lot of people. What I think it's called First Fridays. If you haven't been, let me tell you what.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And these other municipalities, under your leadership and guidance, this can really take off. But this is a lot of work on your staff. It's a lot
So
of work.
what I'm saying is how will I be able to have measurable success? How are we gonna measure success from an art program?
Well, the way I
Increased
interpret
tourism.
it would be, the murals that you already have in the city of Jamestown with the Lucy, and playing off with the comedy the center, and you got, I don't know how many bus loads that you come in from people from Pittsburgh, and you want your city to look, you know, as
gotta
good
be
as it
appealing.
can, and appealing that, hey, this is where Lucy grew up, or, you know, in I don't know, Silver Creek. You know, I mean, I think they all need some help. You know, and I live in Dunkirk, and you know, we have a lot of waterfront people coming in, and I just think it adds a little. You were talking about Bemis Point. How you know, I'm in favor of it. I agree. The 100,000 isn't a lot of money when you get right down to it. I mean, we all do construction on different old buildings. We know what they cost just to get them ready, let alone to paint them. That's just my 2 cents. Anybody else?
If I could just say
Mr. Chair?
just real quick, I mean, we want to create places where people want to go that have cool stuff, for lack of a better term.
Exactly.
And whether it's, you know, you know, trails or some kind of waterfront park or brewery or cool little shops or art or chairs where there's Instagrammable moments. You ever go to the skating rink down in the Outer Harbor in Buffalo? They have the shark woman.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
shark
yes.
girl.
Yeah.
She's
I mean,
everywhere.
everyone gets a
I got a
picture
picture
taken
of
there.
Yeah.
That's
You
true.
know, and
taken
it's
there,
free
so.
advertising, you know, so it's like creating, you know, it's almost like a critical mass. Creating a critical mass, and this is one piece of that.
Right.
This alone wouldn't do it, but
Right.
we
Put it
keep
all
doing
together.
this kind of stuff, you put it together,
It's gonna
and
work.
creating a cool place now.
Just to be clear, that money cannot be like given to the 4-H because it's part of the
No.
3% program.
It's gotta be for
So,
tourism.
right, so this money has to be designated for tourism.
Yeah.
So even if we felt compelled to give it to something else,
Yeah.
it still has to go towards tourism.
Just one last question.
One last.
One last,
Got a
Chairman.
tight schedule.
I know we are. Is the Arts Council involved at all in any?
We will be involving
Okay.
them, yep, definitely.
Collaboration.
Yep.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Visitors Bureau, because I understand what Dave's
Yep.
saying, is how do you measure return on investment when you do something like art programs? And it's like Mark was saying, it's part of the whole big package, but it's hard to say. What's our return on investment?
We'll put a hashtag on the bottom and as many, we can quantify it that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
track it.
And one of the things too, I think Mark is saying, one of the things we've got to do to attract young people to come here is we've got to provide them something to do. And sometimes I think we're lacking on that, especially in our city. What do young people do that's good to be doing, not trouble? And providing those spots, it is a good thing.
That's great.
And I think we need to do more of that. I think you're right on that. You know, you've changed my mind.
Wow.
No, you gave a lot, no, you get a lot of good there. I'm thinking, it's $100,000 we're talking. This is not chump change. It's a lot of
Right,
money here.
right.
And next year about this time, you'll be back and I'll keep my notes. Okay, all right.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Number 10, authorize use of 3% occupancy tax reserve and establish capital accounts for waterway trail hazard removal. All yours.
Thank you. So again, this is the third of three requests to appropriate funds out of the 3% reserve. This resolution specifically seeks your approval to establish a new capital account that would actually be controlled by the DPF Parks Division, using the 3% reserve funds to continue to fund waterway trail hazard removal. Again, the county maintains the Martin Cobb waterway trail system, and it's been really neglected for years. And earlier this year, the legislature approved $105,000 in ARPA funding. DPF put in that request, and it was in a partnership with CWC to start to clean out the riverway and really reactivate it for paddling, kayaking, etc., canoeing. Obviously, as a tourism driver, as well as contributes to our residents' quality of life. CWC started really at the state line and it started to work upstream. And again, when we were evaluating potential strategic initiatives for 3% funds, we met with DPF Parks, talked about their priorities, park improvements, land acquisition. this immediately rose to the top as a good opportunity, especially because there's already been ARPA funds allocated in that funding. There's 21 miles total, but only 12.4 were able to be cleared with that allocation. So again, we're seeking to chip away and again reactivate not the entire waterway, but a majority of it, so it can be maintained in perpetuity in the future by DPF. And again, was reviewed by the County Parks Commission and Planning Board and recommended for approval.
You know,
I just,
sorry, go ahead.
can I just add to that real quick? Really two things. When you think about what an incredible asset our waterways are, but why are they an asset if you can't actually use them? So here we have these beautiful waterways. And I have the story, and my staff have all heard it, but about 15 years ago, a friend of mine wanted to go canoeing in the Martin Cobb Waterway. And it was only about 5 miles as the crow flies. And so we launched off and we hit a log jam. We hit another log jam. We hit another log jam. We hit Beaver Dam, and we got so far down, we're like, well, we can't turn back now,
Right.
So we ended going, kept going, and we hit over 22 log jams. And he was so mad by the end, and like I almost lost a friend over this. I mean, it was horrible, horrible. And what really made him mad was that the county was advertising about all these great waterways we have and saying, oh, it's a great place to take you, go canoe and take your family, and they're not navigable. So this is really going a long way to making those navigable and now having a real asset that we can be proud of. So I think this work is incredibly important.
Is there a time frame, Nate, on this, actually?
So I would anticipate, a couple months for DPF to get a contract in place with CWC, who I believe will continue to partner with Parks. So I would anticipate early spring for continuing.
So there's a
that
plan
work.
in place then?
Yes.
All right, great, thanks.
I think there needs to be sustainable funding. I know this is part of what Twan and his crew have been working on, to be able to do some work to clear out a lot of the log jams. And there were articles in the paper recently about the trees that have come down behind the comedy center, and the problem with those where they were like the tree of heaven, is that the right one? And they attract those bugs that will eat everything inside, and they don't maintain the structure of the land of the banks, and so they had to take them all out so that they wouldn't, and people were upset. But I think part of that was public education as to what the problem was and why they needed to come out. So we have funding for specific projects that if we can find sustainable, and I think a really good example of that was when the water, the river at Jamestown Container out in Faulkner came up and wiped out half their parking lot because it wasn't maintained, and there were things that needed to come down and be taken care of. And so if they could clean that up and plant the right kind of trees along the bankways, it could help make it navigable but keep it sustainable in the future. So anything we can do to make people aware and understand the importance of cleanup and maintenance.
I would add one other thing. I think there are areas of all rivers, but especially the Martin Cobb waterway, that they should almost say, okay, it's too problematic. It's too much work. Maybe we write this off and say, no, we're not gonna keep this cleaned out.
But you can go here.
Yeah, but you can go here and direct people where to go, because if they're spending 3/4 of their time cleaning out half a mile of river, they would have to then neglect other parts. So I think there are also areas they say, we're not gonna do
But
it
there
here.
has to be a conscious decision
Yeah.
about what we're gonna do with it, and not just say, oh, we can't really afford it, and then let it go
Yeah.
to waste.
And they're doing that whole assessment about that.
That's
Didn't they do an
CWC.
assessment on the entire river?
Yep.
Yep.
And Mr. Chair, if I can just make one point, I think, in my opinion, is critical, is that I've done similar line of work, and I've actually removed some of the trees in years past from the Chautauqua as a subcontractor. And it is imperative that we utilize shared services, Chautauqua County, DPF, facilities equipment or other village and other municipality equipment. And we enjoyed that work years ago that we had, but again, you bring in large equipment, technical workforce, it's prevailing wages, and it's extremely expensive. I'm not sure if the prevailing wages falls into some of that government money, but typically if it's municipal related or federal related, it probably does. But I just know that this time of year, these nice cool days that we have, as for example, some of our workforce may not be as busy because we're not plowing, we're not salting, we're not sanding. I know they're doing other activities within their individual facilities, but that's something I just make a recommendation that the leaders of these departments think about. We have a little bit of downtime now. We know that we got log jams, trees down, so on and so forth, and I just can't stress enough that we utilize county equipment, village and other municipal shared assets, and that's the equipment to do that. Just a suggestion.
Good point taken. Anybody else?
Are we responsible for all the waterways in Chautauqua County?
Don't know that.
Public.
Is it the state?
Public waterways.
State has.
When you say responsible,
Well, I'm
we
just
don't
saying-
own them, but.
Okay, okay. So we're just targeting this because the county is targeting this as a recreational use
Exactly.
type of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which brings in tourism
Mhm.
as the
Yeah.
focus of what we're
Good
doing.
question, though.
Yeah,
Okay.
excellent.
Any other comments, questions? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Okay. Moving on to number 11. Authorize agreement with Chautauqua Regional Economic Development Corporation for tourism development and placemaking.
Yeah, so, this resolution, just to kind of relate it back, public art is one component of placemaking, but our department, along with Chautauqua County Partnership for Economic Growth, we're focused right now on efforts, initiatives, projects to improve, revitalize our downtowns, and really activate our waterfronts. And again, public art is just one component of that. We'll have to come back to this committee in the future to share more of the good things happening in cities and villages and elsewhere in that regard. But this funding, again, what is placemaking? As Mark sort of referred to earlier, it's efforts, investments, design, and making cool places, right? People want to be, people want to, where people want to visit, live, recreate. And this funding, again, was established in the 3% budget this year and is consistent with the 2024 budget. Really goes to our partnership placemaking work group to figure out how to allocate to, again, identify, develop, fund, and implement any number of projects that hit that target. Again, just some examples. We partnered with Westfield to get them some state funding to put in an amphitheater. We're working with Mayville to activate Lakeside Park. We're working with the city of Jamestown to activate the Chautauqua River. We've been involved in the Dunkirk DRI process, the $10 million, and so on. And really, this funding supports our efforts. This year, it was allocated to fund 2 downtown revitalization master plans that I mentioned earlier that we conducted for Faulkner and Westfield. And then we take that plan and we try to implement it. We leverage that to apply for New York Forward funding, again, to implement any number of public and private projects that ultimately improve that downtown and make it a place people want to live and visit. So,
And without a plan, you can't go after
Absolutely.
grants, right?
Yep.
And I think Nate sort of downplayed our role in a lot of these because we were the key driver for the Chautauqua River project behind the National Comedy Center. They received over $2 million. It's because we took the reins and really, got everyone together and got the city together and, hired a consultant and put together a plan and applied for the funding and received the funding. The same is true in Mayville. That was what, $700-some thousand in Mayville on their waterfront. So, and the DRI, we took 2 cracks at it. We got turned down last year And then we retooled and geared up and went after it again and got the 10 million this year. So these are really, we're really playing a key role in making these things happen. And why it's key really is because a lot of these communities, now the city of Jamestown and Dunkirk are a little different. They do have some resources, but these smaller communities like really Westfield and Mayville and Ripley and others, they don't have development directors. They don't have resources. They don't have the skill set
Right.
to understand how do you, on that continuum of an idea, get it all the way to the finish line of actually building it. There's a lot of steps in between. And that's sort of what our skill set is, and that's what we're helping them do. So that's where this money is gonna go, to continue that kind of work.
Which is wonderful, because
Yeah.
as you've mentioned in the past, small towns and, as people come and go, elected officials, you start back over, and
That's right.
yeah, and they don't have the skill set that you do and your staff does, so great job.
Yeah,
And
continuity. Yep.
your record speaks for your success.
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It really does. Any other questions, comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, number 12, authorize agreement with Small Business Development Center at the Jamestown Community College.
Again, this resolution is consistent with the 2024 budget. As some of the committee members may remember, back in September, we discussed the SBDC's allocation. Courtney Curatola and their staff do great work. They continue to serve more clients each year. We have great partnerships and collaboration with the IDA, where they're supporting several of the IDA's clients in business planning and financials. Again, great organization, and again, consistent with the 2024 budget, just authorizing the contract.
Great. Any questions and comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Number 13, authorize agreement with Chautauqua County Regional Economic Development Corporation for Greenway Development.
So again, this resolution ultimately, again, it's consistent with the 2024 occupancy tax budget. We have a line item for greenway development and promotion, again, just consistent with our efforts to ultimately work on implementing the county's greenway plan. Again, the funding primarily supports a contractual position we've created through CRITIC, the Chautauqua Region Economic Development Corporation, and other, related programming we're doing really to focus on trail maintenance, collaboration among and between the various trail groups and entities, and to ultimately enhance our existing trails, build new trails, and promote the collective assets that we have throughout the county.
I'm gonna add one little thing. In 2011, the legislature unanimously adopted the comprehensive plan. One of the key recommendations in that plan was for us to capitalize on our assets, especially our natural assets, trails. Trails was a big thing, so we said, okay, well, let's really develop a greenway plan for the county. So we hired Pashik out of Pittsburgh. They were awesome. We developed a greenway plan, and a lot of things have come out of that. The Mayville Trail, that there's going to be a ribbon cutting here soon. The trail that runs in Mayville from 430 down behind the depot. There, we got that done. The
Nice.
equestrian trails, about 13 miles of horse trails. We tapped into Southern Tier West ARC funding 3 years in a row, actually. Got that done. And then it sort of petered out a little bit, right? And so all of a sudden, there was a renewed interest. I'd say primarily Jacob, Bodway came along, and he's like, we really need to do more, and got really fired up and got a lot of people fired up. And so we sort of went back at it here, and there's a lot now happening. And one thing that was difficult is that there's maybe a dozen different trails groups, between the cross-country, skiing, and snowmobilers, and equestrian, and on and on and on. And they're all sort of, working in their own silos and not working together. So the concept of bringing them all together as one cohesive group that has more power, I guess, and can all sort of, march in the same direction, corralling all those people and getting them all to work together. And that's really what this is doing. And we think it's gonna be very effective, and it's something that you don't see going on in many places. And we're already reaping rewards from it.
I would think it could be a little difficult coordinating everybody's different agendas.
It is.
But it's good to bring everybody together to start the process.
Rebecca's taking a key role in that too.
Nice job, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Great job.
Mr. Chair, I'm just concerned, I don't think it's enough.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
nothing to be done about it right now, but, I don't think that's adequate compared to other things that we spend money on with this 3%. And I think the agreement thing is a very important aspect and assets that we have, here in Chautauqua County, so.
Maybe
I'll
it's an
support it,
agenda for
obviously.
next year.
Somebody write that down. You got that?
Oh, I'm writing stuff down, don't you worry.
Okay. Any
Thank
other
you, Joe.
comments?
I agree.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Number 14, authorize agreement with County of Chautauqua Industrial Development Agency for business development, assistance, and promotion.
So the IDA has been receiving money from the county for quite a number of years, and we haven't gotten an increase since I can remember, it's at least 15 years. Maybe I'm wrong, but, the IDA, and I'm just gonna reveal something right now, this year, we're gonna have a banner year. Over $800 million in projects that we're involved in. Last year, we were $500 million, and we were the #1 IDA in the region. And,
Wonderful.
yeah,
Congratulations.
and, over 500 jobs will be created, over 2,000 retained jobs. We've received over $10 million in grants. And this will all be encapsulated in a annual report that we will put out in January. And you'll all get copies of it. We just started doing that a couple of years. You can really look at it, by the numbers. But, our IDA does a lot of really good work. We've got really dedicated staff, and we really care about families and creating jobs and creating commerce in this community, and think we're really making a big impact. So this is only between 5% and 8% of our budget, so it doesn't make up a big piece of our budget. We're pretty much self-supporting, but it really helps. So we appreciate that.
Any questions, any comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Number 15, authorize agreement with the County of Chautauqua Industrial Development Agency for attraction and development of tourism-related businesses.
Back when Bill Daly was the IDA director, so it was 10 years ago or so that they created a universal tax exempt policy for tourism. And, really looking at tourism as an industry. That was kind of a fresh new look at things. And tourism is an industry. And I'll just name a few examples of projects that we've been involved in that have made a huge impact on this community. The Harbor Hotel. We were key to that project. We showed them the land. We helped finance it. We did a pilot with them on that. The DoubleTree, and that took a long time. That was a really kind of painful, downtown Jamestown. The Hideaway Bay. Hideaway Bay, this legislature approved the transfer of the Hideaway property over to the land bank, and then we worked very closely with the land bank to advertise it and find the right developer. And right now, you go down there's 10 town
It's the coolest thing you've ever
glamping
seen.
units,
Oh my-
right?
I see it every day when I go by, and it just,
Yeah.
you see each day you see the progress that is going on, and I'm telling you, I can't wait till that thing opens up.
That's gonna be so cool. And so we spent a lot of time
Oh,
and
yeah.
work on that. And then, like the Dunkirk Marina we're involved in right now, which is a big deal, and that's taken a lot of my time personally. And the White Inn is another example. So
Big.
these are all projects that are tourism related that we're spending a lot of time trying to bring to the fold, because again, tourism is one of our top 3 industries in this county. And it's very important. So that helps us do that.
Wonderful job. Any questions, any comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Number 16, amend the 2024 budget to implement the Chautauqua County Strategic Infrastructure Project Identification and Development Project using funding from the American Rescue Plan Act, better known as ARPA.
So we've already kind of hit on this concept a little bit, but again, as many of you probably hear, there's a lot of federal money flowing through various federal agencies and down to the state for infrastructure. And that was through, the infrastructure bill, Inflation Reduction Act. Those funds are still going to be around for the next 2 to 3 years. And as we saw, just an example, the South and Center Sewer District expansion, we brought a lot of money, state, federal resources to get that project over the finish line. And kind of using that as a concept or a case study, we have a lot of other infrastructure projects, whether it's water, sewer, marinas, and so on, broadband, that are kind of at the idea stage. And obviously, you can't submit an idea for a grant, right? And so this ARPA funding request really is a planning process. So our department can take the lead on inventorying, working with other county departments to really create a priority list of infrastructure projects we want to queue up and we want to try to fund over the next couple of years. So it's identification, it's vetting, developing, applying for funding, and hopefully implementing, bringing more capital dollars to implement these projects to the county. So that's it in a nutshell, if you
Yeah,
want to add
so,
to that,
well,
Mark.
like Kevin said earlier, it's like you can't just submit an idea. You really need to flesh it out. You really need to know not only what is it, but how did you arrive at what makes sense for your community? And what is it, and what's it look like, and how much does it cost, and who's gonna implement, and all that. And that, I mean, those CFA applications and other applications are 30, 40 pages long with budgets and, very complicated stuff. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna queue up, maybe up to even half a dozen projects to get them pointed towards these funding sources so that we can grab onto some of that money.
Very proactive, very good,
Yep.
very good.
Any comments, questions?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. We have come to the presentations now. First one is the Ripley Development Site,
Oh, yeah.
presented by Mark Geis and Rebecca Worcester. Looks like we have some,
Yeah, I'll be working, it'll probably be Nate and I mostly on this, so. You've all heard about the Ripley Interstate shovel-ready site,
Where's that at?
project. The site. Why don't you go to the next page? You can see where it is. We all know where Ripley is. We know the last exit on the thruway is the Shortman Road exit. If you go south on that exit, there's a new Love's Truck Stop. On the one on the west side, and on the east side is Regal Trucking. So why don't you go to the next slide? And the Regal Trucking, and then you can see where Regal is. You can see behind it where the project site is, okay? So it borders the New York State Thruway. You can see the access road is right here. Access road is gonna come up here, it's gonna run all the way across the site. And this is about 146 acres, 4 different property owners. We've done a ton of work on this with consultants, attorneys, everything between the environmental due diligence and infrastructure and negotiating with the landowners.
how many years you got involved in this, you think?
Well, this goes back to Bill Daley's years. I mean, this is but then it didn't.
But then
Nothing
you picked it
happened
back
for a
up
while.
again,
So I've been
right?
working on it for like 3.5 years
Yeah.
now.
Okay,
Yeah, ever since.
sorry to interrupt.
When I started with the IDA, shovel-ready sites is really important, no question about it. So anyway, that gives you an idea of what. Okay, so go to the next one, I guess. Justification: $16 million project. There are not a lot of sites in the county and the region. There was a study that was done by Newmark Frank, Investable Finagra commissioned it, and they concluded that this region was woefully deplete of good or any shovel-ready sites. And they actually went to each county and they looked at their sites, and they determined that this site was a really good site, and it was our top site that we should work on. So it makes a lot of sense. So we did a lot of things. We got it rezoned, worked with the town of Ripley because it was zoned agriculture before. We got it rezoned. to allow for warehousing, distribution, logistics, light manufacturing, and related uses. The water and sewer were extended before this, but they had been extended maybe a year before we really started working on this. So it has water and sewer now. We received a $5.25 million Fast New York grant. That's a new program that was created last year, seeded with $200 million.
Wow, big,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yep, so that's pretty cool, and I'll show you the budget in a second here, but yeah, we've been working on this, did a lot of the due diligence. You want to, when you say shovel ready, you want to have everything done, as far along done as possible, so that somebody comes in and says, I want to buy this, they're as close to being ready to put a shovel in the ground. That's what it means. So that they don't have to go and negotiate with landowners. There's already site control. They don't have to go in and put a water line or a sewer line in. You know how long that takes. That's already done. They don't have to do the environmental stuff that includes like historic preservation and wetland delineation and all that stuff's already done. All that's already done. So it's yeah.
Town of Ripley or Village of Ripley, water and sewer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, town, yep. So go to the next one. Status of land, yep, that one, yep. You can sort of see from here, phase one, we kind of have a phase one, phase two, but phase one is 62, 63 acres. You can see who the landowners are. There's 4 different landowners on that, but on the phase two, it's only 1 landowner. So that makes it a little easier. We hope to close by the end of this year on phase one properties. Again, that's about 63 acres. The other 84 acres probably next year. Go to the next one. You can see phase one, phase two. Okay. Status of funding sources.
So-
Thank you.
So,
Mhm.
can we just go back
Yeah.
one? So right now, water and sewer, where it says 1, that's where water and sewer is at, right there in that corner.
Right down here.
Okay.
So the road will go up like this. And I don't know if you got a picture.
There's another
There's
site
another
plan.
slide.
Yep.
But the water and sewer will come in and the electric, and will run along that waterway, that roadway.
Okay.
So that'll all be stubbed in all the way over. So if somebody wants this piece of land over here, the water and the sewer and the electric are right there.
Close enough.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's why it's expensive. But you can see we've got $4.8 million of ARPA. Thank you, legislature. We have capital projects funding over 2 or 3 or 4 years. The planning board agreed with us and in most cases made that the #1 project for funding. CCIDA is gonna put in $1 million. I went to Washington last year. We put in an application for congressional spending, was not awarded. ARC Power, we were not successful. Southern Tier West, IIJA, that stands for Infrastructure Improvement and Jobs Act, I think, Rebecca. But Rebecca worked on that. We're feeling very confident about getting that $1 million. And we got the Fast New York, the 5.25, and then we got another 37.5 from National Grid, and we anticipate to get another one. So we're at we have about $13 million, 13.7 out of a $16 million project, and we'll find the rest. You can see the uses here: acquisition, pre-development, infrastructure, closing costs. Phase 1, that's about $7 million. Phase 2, you can see acquisition, closing costs, infrastructure, electric upgrades. The site's only served with what, we talked about here, 4.8 kilovolts, megawatts, and it really needs to be more than that. That would actually be okay for probably phase 1, but we're going to up it to about 35 megawatts. So that'll be a really, that'll make that very attractive. And we're targeting, by the way, warehousing, distribution, and logistics. There's Buffalo Niagara. I talked about that study that they did with Newmark Frank, and there is a big demand in this area for logistics and distribution. And we just don't have the right sites right now. We've had a ton of requests for projects that we don't have anything. You know, they need big sites. They don't need 3 acres. They need 60 acres or 100 acres or whatever. And so that will do that'll serve that purpose. Yeah, we have a number of local food manufacturers that that are always looking for space. And, you know, so there'll be not only probably companies from outside of the area, but local companies. If you want to go to the next one. Next one. Yeah, now you can really see it here, and that's just a concept of how that road might run. And, you know, if you were building out, you know, if you were putting buildings on it, it might end up being one huge building here, or a big building here, but these are like, you know, this is 50,000 square feet, 100,000 square feet. You know, we're just sort of playing around with concepts and what that might look like in the future. And then, two last things. Marketing, we're gonna collaborate with Invest Buffalo Niagara, which includes the Buffalo Niagara Commercial Listing System, media outreach, hosting events, trade shows, and reaching out to site selectors, which there's a lot of them, and we know a number of them about this site. We have Paula Blanchard from Hannah Realty has been really helpful. She knows a lot of people and will help us to market the site. And also marketing it on platforms like LoopNet, Crexy.com, CoStar, Hannah, CRE, others. Probably have a big sign up there advertising it. And publicity, promotion, and promote. I feel like I'm at home. No, campaign advertising, to local, state, regional, U.S., Canadian business communities about the site's unique advantage, right there on the thruway, perfect. So anyway, that's a sample of that. And then in terms of community support, the town of Ripley's been great to work with. I mean, just awesome to work with. The legislature, you guys have been great, and the partnership, and the IDA, and the Department of Planning, Invest Buffalo Niagara, the state, they've all been really, really helpful and great to work with. It's zoned appropriately. This is not a new endeavor. You know, like I said, this was started some years ago, and we sort of picked it back up and are running with it. And then the town of Ripley did a comprehensive plan. They updated it in September of 2023, and they certainly speak to this being a high priority development site. And they also talk about the momentum on Shortman Road with the water and sewer. That's why they ran it down there, obviously, and they got the loves now, and so we're excited about this project.
What a project.
It's a
Holy
great
cow.
project. I'm excited about it. Good job, Mark.
Very nice job.
You and your team.
Any questions, any comments? Mark, this is unbelievable, and that,
Keep it
in
going.
3.5 years, what you guys have done.
Nate's played a big role. I mean, everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, Rebecca and our attorneys and everybody. Yeah, a lot of people involved in this.
You can tell.
Yeah.
I appreciate you bringing that forward. I mean, this kind of a project, the amount of work that goes into it, and to make sure that not only that we're aware, but that the public is aware. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you, yes.
Thanks for asking us. Sometimes we don't know. We just have our heads down doing the work. We don't really think
Yeah.
to put them up and tell everyone. We're just like, you know.
Toot your horn, you know?
Yeah.
All right, so can we move along? Again, wonderful project. Next on the agenda is the countywide housing study. You enlighten us about that? please? Yep.
You want to sit?
Yeah.
Tracy, are you there?
Oh yeah, I'm here. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything.
I
Sorry.
will. I'm just waiting for, are you able to put it on these screens?
Just the counties.
There we go.
I was gonna say, my slides aren't that interesting anyway.
No.
It is, actually.
I'm a talker.
Funny. All right, let me just introduce you quickly, Tracy. Hi, everyone. Rebecca Worster, Planning Coordinator for the Department of Planning and Development. Through the Partnership for Economic Growth's Housing Work Group, it was determined that we really needed a county-wide housing market study and action plan to better understand our current housing stock and inventory, but also develop a market assessment to provide interested housing developers in order to attract them to our county and understand the needs that we're facing in regards to what type of housing we need, what's necessary, and what our county can support. And through the Partnership for Economic Growth, we were able to fund this specific study, and we hired a really wonderful housing expert and consultant, MRB Group, Michael Endolo, Matt Horn, and with us today to present our study is Tracy Verrier. And I won't steal her thunder. Please enjoy the presentation and ask questions at the end. Thank you. Tracy?
Thanks, Rebecca. I'll say it's been really lovely working with the team in Chautauqua County and diving and talking to a lot of the stakeholders. It's been a really interesting project. So tonight I'm going to just briefly go through the process of how we got to where we are now. I'm going to review the higher level goals and strategies and kind of explain how they'll fit into the plan. And then I'm happy to take any questions. So this is the outline of the project process. We had a project kickoff and capacity assessment with the planning staff and some of the key county partners to just really understand what they were looking for from this plan, what capacity they have to implement actions within the plan, and what partners we needed to consider. From there, we did a data analysis looking at demographics, the housing inventory, and the market, real estate market trends. And that data really provided us with a foundation to work from. It certainly does not create recommendations. It tells us what questions to ask and also verifies things that we're hearing from people in the community. So that analysis will be available in the final plan. A draft of it is done now, so we've been working from that for a few months now. The tactical direction, this is really where we got into developing the goals and the objectives of the plan, which is what we'll talk about. And then we moved into the strategies and the action plan. That is really more thinking about what are the specific activities that the county, local municipalities, and key partners can do to improve the housing stock and the housing availability in the county. And now we're kind of developing that all into a matrix and a final report. And, I'm hoping that before or close to shortly after the end of the year, we'll be able to get you a final version of that report and be able to close out the project and let you move on with the hard work. As part of the process, the early process, we did probably close to 20 interviews with stakeholder agencies. So these are entities and organizations that are working within the county to either provide housing or connect people with housing. These are generally your nonprofits or like your LDC type housing authorities and folks like that. Matt Horn then came out to Chautauqua County and had a series of meetings with municipal leaders, mayors and supervisors, and then caught up with a few who weren't able to attend afterwards. So I'm sure he's talked to many of you in the room tonight. And then we also had Michael and Dole had a series of conversations with housing developers in the area that are active in the area to better understand what their needs are. So those sets of interviews really informed the direction of the priorities and the strategies that we worked into the plan. And one fun fact about how the data leads us is that we did end up doing a interview with the Resource Center because we noticed an unusually high number of people with disabilities in particularly the Dunkirk area. And so that made us say, okay, why is that? What are the needs there? How are they experiencing the housing market? So that's how the data piece helps to guide some of our conversations and our questions. So the matrix is basically a table, a big table, and it outlines 4 key goal areas at the highest level. And then underneath each goal area has a set of objectives or strategies. And within each strategy, it then has a series of actions. And those are like the more specific, do this, change this, talk to these people, really the more actionable items. And with each of the actionable items, we are including some timing considerations. Is this a short-term project, a long-term project, a priority level within the context of the plan? Obviously, anything that's in the plan is a priority, but we still need to help you, or we still need to make sure that the plan gives you some sense of, within that context, what is the top priority, and should be targeted first. And then also a listing of partners and funding resources that could help with each action. Those 4 high-level goal areas really break down into these things: housing diversity and quality, housing for special populations, reducing the cost burden for residents, and the land management tools and various resources that will ultimately help. So that's more of like the policy stuff. Any questions on these 4 before I kind of get into a little bit more detail? Great. So what I'm going to go through today is kind of a high-level view of what those strategies are. We don't have time to talk about all the actions, but this will help give you a sense of the direction the plan is going, the actions that we're building out, and the partners that we'll be working with. So under this first goal area, this is focused on having a diversity of quality housing options for people and making sure that housing is maintained and contributing to the community vibrancy as opposed to potentially creating blight. This is broken down into 3 strategies. The first one focused on the issues that come with an aging housing stock. I don't think it's any surprise to anybody that the housing stock is relatively old in the county and in particular pockets of the county. And with that comes issues of deterioration, maintenance, lead. Jamestown has a really high level of childhood lead poisoning, or lead, what do they call it now? Lead something, high levels of lead in the blood. I think there's a new term for it, but who knows? Energy efficiency, these kinds of things go along with it, the aging housing stock. So the first strategy is really focused on that. Second strategy is focused on new housing. So how do we put new units into use, both rental and for ownership? And how do we do that in a smart way, utilizing infrastructure that already exists? So we had a lot of conversations about infill development within kind of downtown areas, main streets, adaptive reuse. So a lot of people that we talked to, they said, use these buildings that we have already that are vacant. Turn those into housing, particularly rental housing. So there's a lot of interest from the stakeholders and from the folks we talked to for adaptive reuse of vacant buildings. And then, from there, there's strategies about how to address building new housing in the community and how to prepare for that. The last one is really around rental housing specifically and tenant supports. It became clear that there's really the market for rental housing has really tightened and it's become very expensive. Rents are going up and quality is going down is the general consensus of what we heard. So this last strategy is really focused on rental housing. The second goal area is around special populations, and we broke this down into 3 areas: seniors, individuals with disabilities, and housing insecure and homeless populations, or unhoused populations. So, and particularly families in the last case. So these strategies are focused on these particular groups that have, just different needs when it comes to housing and different structures. So, a senior product could look more, it needs to be accessible, but also it could look more like a townhome, or it could look more like an apartment complex. There's a variety there. And then accessibility is really key for individuals with disabilities, being close to a grocery store, on transit lines, those types of items. And then, transitional and emergency housing for the unhoused individuals and housing insecure individuals. Goal 3 was reducing the cost burden. So this is about, so generally speaking, when we say cost burden, we mean a household shouldn't be spending more than 30% of their annual income on housing costs. And if they are, we consider them cost burdened. We broke this, and so we wanted to look at, we noticed, there's still a lot of people, a lot of families and households that are cost burdened across New York State. So we broke this down into a few different categories, or 2 categories specifically to focus on. One is workforce housing, 60 to 120% of the area median income, according to HUD standards. This is really your service workers, your teachers, your to some extent your manufacturing workers. These are the core workforce, and this group is getting pinched out of the market right now. This is who we would have normally considered like the market rate target in some cases, at least at the higher end. And market rate just doesn't align with affordability anymore the same way that we used to think about it. So there's a shift in the conversation around what is market rate versus what can people actually afford. And those don't line up as well. So this workforce housing component is really addressing that issue of, middle class, blue collar workers no longer fitting in the housing market. And then we have the low and moderate income individuals and families. This could be seniors. It still does hit workforce to a certain extent, but it's also obviously individuals and families who are living on a restricted income, at-risk populations, those folks. And then the last piece of this is really talking about what is affordable housing and what does that mean? As I just said, that is the meaning of affordable housing is shifting because more and more people who are our neighbors and people we talk to every day are struggling with cost burden in their housing costs. And so affordable housing, the perception of it is getting further and further from what it actually means. So having that conversation with the public, talking about what is 60% AMI and who is in that group, so that there can be a informed conversation about affordable housing development. And this last goal area is kind of like I mentioned, the policy stuff. This is the strategies we have here around code compliance. A lot of that is really tied to other work that's happening already in the county, and making sure that that's tying in with what you're hoping to do with housing. Creating and facilitating pathways to homeownership. This is about building partnerships and programming to encourage and allow for greater homeownership for a more diverse population. And then lastly, looking at comprehensive planning, zoning, tax laws and policies that address housing development needs, making sure that if you want to facilitate infill development, you have to make sure that your zoning and your comp plans are in place to do that. So that's what this last strategy is about. So that's a really brief overview. There's a lot more words in the plan, but I didn't want to keep you here all night. So I'm happy to answer any questions or give any more detail that you'd like tonight. And otherwise, you should be seeing the plan soon.
Good. Any questions, comments?
It's a great
Yeah,
plan.
as it relates, thank you for the presentation, by the way. As it relates to the average median income, workforce is one category, and then low to moderate. What is that figure that you used in Chautauqua County? Do you know that just offhand?
I can pull it up here. I probably should have looked it up before we started. That would have been the smart thing to do, wouldn't it?
That's fine, but what I'm bringing this full circle is, I have a niece and nephew, both have sound jobs. One is an educator, one works for Chautauqua County as a sheriff. They're building a new home here shortly in the county, and what they're gonna be paying for that new home is up 50% between the cost of the components to build the home and the labor prior to COVID. And so I look at these large figures, 30 to 60% of their whole income is on housing. Now we know things have been exacerbated since COVID and the inflation and the cost to just provide food on the table. And this is a serious circle problem, you know. I mean, this is all together, but we're seeing that in our county. I'm seeing it even with young professional people. $100,000 before COVID in 2019, Chautauqua County was a big deal. $100,000 a year gross with 2 kids is now what it used to be. And so this affordable housing thing is going to be a crisis that it's here, and it's going to get worse.
Yeah, so I did just pull it up. The area median income is, according to HUD, is $76,300. So 30% of that is what we're aiming for a family or a household to not be cost burden. The 27% of jobs in the county earn between 60 and 80% of that amount. So really, you know, there's a lot of people in the community that are making less than that amount, and they're struggling to find housing that is affordable to them.
Is that a family of 4?
Yes.
Okay. And again, if you could say, it's 76 is the median, but you're saying, what was the percentage of people making less than that?
So roughly 53% of residents earn less than what we would consider. I'm sorry, I'm reading through this right now.
If it's the median, 50% would make less and 50% would make more.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a median, it's not an so it would be 50-50 of households make more and less than that number. Yes, she's absolutely right.
She's a banker.
And one thing that we looked at is the estimated average monthly mortgage in the county is about $1,200. And then if you add utilities in, we're looking at a housing cost of about $1,500. So the threshold of being affordable for an average mortgage is about $61,000. 53% of Chautauqua County resident or households make less than that.
That's the kicker here. If it's 76,000, 30% of that is over, you know, $22,000, $1,900 a month. That's $1,900 a month, and don't forget, that's never the take-home pay. And then you throw putting food on the table and gas in the car. Now we got a real problem, and this is across the country. And then you talk the amount of debt that everybody's accumulating on their credit cards, and where is this ship heading? You know, it doesn't matter where you stand politically. These are just the facts, and you're identifying the facts for us. And so as elected leaders, this is the real meat and potatoes, because this is what Main Street really gives a hoot about right here. Is you go into Walmart right now, or Aldi's right now, I was today, and you see it. You see the stress. And you've identified this stuff collectively. And
The 1,200 that you quoted for the mortgage, that's not escrow, taxes, insurance, that's just straight mortgage payment?
That includes, so that would be the whole average mortgage payment.
Okay, thank you.
so, you know, if you take that 1,200, that's serious money. And affordable housing, you know, we talk about it, but right here is right in front of us, and this is what it costs to live and to struggle. And
In your study, I've always heard it, that Chautauqua County is one of the oldest housing stock in the country. Did you kind of come across that
It's old.
across the
I will
country.
say we mapped this out and, there's a significant portion of housing in the county, particularly, I'll show you this map in the, these dark red areas. That's where you have like really high concentrations of old housing stock, and that's built before 1940. Jamestown in particular has a really high percentage. And throughout the county, not every area has that high concentration, but where you do, it's very, very concentrated.
To relate to that point, building new housing is extremely expensive right now. I think my niece and nephew, I think they're in that $300 a square foot, and that's a modest American dream type home that they're building, and 2 professional level jobs, and it's so expensive. I do believe that the components, the parts and pieces to build these homes is obviously coming down, but the labor aspect has not, and it will not come down.
No.
And,
Yeah.
So we hope that you guys, you all, look at the study. We'll make this available to you and
Love to
really
see
look
it.
at it and talk to us about it, and what you think. And, we'll be coming back to you at some point here in the near future and talk to you about, we would like to really come up with a list of, 10, a priority of top 10 kind of thing. And bust one of those out a year for the next 10 years. I mean, and that's really,
Sure, the idea.
what we're trying to do. So we'll keep you informed of where we're at.
This study's gonna help us
Yeah.
tremendously with the IDA.
Yeah, and the thing is, this really is giving us a good picture with all this data.
It's a great
of, like,
snapshot.
exactly
It's
where
good.
we're at and where we need to address the issues and what strategies to put in place to do that. And so we're
I
getting
agree.
there.
And
Agree as
real
well.
quick, just as a reminder, housing is one of the 5 focus areas of our county economic development strategy. And again, we want to thank not only MRB Group, but we have a dedicated group of volunteers that serve on our partnership housing development work group that meet quarterly to push this plan along, and then hopefully, in the next month or so, when it's complete, focus on implementing what's in our control.
Great.
Great. Thank you very much.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Nice present.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tracy. Thanks.
Thank you.
Nice work.
All right, next to piggyback on this kind of overarching housing study, one of the particulars that we talk about is code enforcement within that study. And we've been working on a countywide code enforcement study. Kieran, are you there?
Yep, I am.
All right. So this project was recommended both by our partnership housing work group and the county's shared services municipal leaders that kind of came together and talked about, the need for shared services and what we could do at the county level to really help our code enforcement officers. It was funded through Department of State's local government efficiency program and was meant to better understand our CEO's current conditions as well as get their input on what the county could help with to improve their services and ultimately improve housing conditions and housing neighborhoods throughout the county. We hired CGR, Paul Bishop, Deanne Willis, and Kieran Bazell to conduct a 3-part study that includes a baseline report, options report, and implementation report. And here to present is Kieran, and I won't steal his thunder. I'll let him present, and please ask questions.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. Can everybody see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, so Kieran Bazilla, Senior Associate with CGR Center for Governmental Research in Rochester. We've done a number of projects with Chautauqua County over the years, so happy to be helping once again look at code enforcement in this case. The goal of this project is to improve code enforcement outcomes throughout the county. As Rebecca mentioned, it was done in 3 phases. There was a baseline report, which established a baseline of the current conditions of code enforcement, what's going on with code enforcement officials, et cetera. There was an options phase in which we presented a range of options for improvement. And finally, there was an implementation roadmap phase in which we sketched out for a couple of the options possibilities to move forward. So there is a lot of information here. I'm going to move through it fairly quickly in the interest of time, but please, once I get through it, let me know any questions you have. And each of these phases came with its own report, which are now in Rebecca's hands, in your hands, whenever you're ready to review them. So for the baseline report, we collected data in a number of ways. First of all, we interviewed and surveyed as many of the code enforcement officers as we could in the county. We ended up speaking with 24 out of the 33 officers then currently serving. We did a survey as well of the code enforcement officers, getting their opinions, attitudes, and a number of metrics about their jobs. As well, we did surveys of municipal leaders, and we did group meetings with municipal leaders to see what the perspective was from their side of it. We did data reviews of things like permit loads. Every year, code enforcement officials have to file a report with the state about all their activity. We reviewed all of those, drew up some numbers on the relevant metrics, et cetera. So all of that emerged in a mixed picture for the county. Some code enforcement programs are going very well and people are very happy with them. Others are struggling. I don't think this will necessarily be news to anybody. Major issues include the code enforcement officials, CEOs themselves feel under stress with large workloads. Because of this, crucial tasks like fire inspections and property maintenance inspections are not going done at the rates they should be. In some cases, they're being neglected while CEOs attend to permit issuance, construction oversight, et cetera, kind of the more immediate tasks on their plate. Most code enforcement officials get low comparative pay given the skill set that they have. As well, there is a lack of a pipeline of qualified successors, the next generation of people who might do this job. There isn't a clear pipeline or route for them. Many times when a code enforcement official leaves their job, local officials kind of scramble around or know somebody who works, say, in the construction field and taps them, potentially part-time, somebody who's partially retired, something like that. But it's a very ad hoc kind of procedure. As well, there's a lot of concerns about property maintenance issues and difficulty in deterring chronic offenders who have a lot of problems with how they're upkeeping their properties, such as making meaningful penalties stick and persuading local courts and judges to get more aggressive in holding people accountable for bad property conditions. So one of the things we did for the baseline was we reviewed some comparison counties where they have some level of county code enforcement. There are 8 other counties in New York State that do some level of it. You can see them listed here. The one thing I will note is that Chautauqua, the only county that is close to it in population of these comparison counties, is Jefferson, which is about 117,000 people, compared to Chautauqua's about 128-some thousand people. So if you are able to see this table, hopefully you'll see even in the counties that have county code enforcement, not every single municipality is covered. It's often the majority of them, but there are often some that only Seneca covers all county municipalities. There are often some municipalities that opt to do it themselves. Sometimes some of the larger cities prefer to handle it themselves, even when the county's handling the rest of it. 2 of the counties also enforce local zoning to some extent. Most counties do not cover zoning for local municipalities or other local property ordinances. In the options report phase, we identified 4 options that the county could pursue. One is maintaining the status quo. We talk about the costs and benefits of that, the pros and cons. One is not being involved in any level of enforcement, but offering background support, such as the county could host a county code expert that local code enforcement officials could refer to for advice. The county could offer a standardized fee schedule to try to standardize things more or less throughout the county. A registry of contractors to catch scofflaw contractors who are dishonest or problematic, let people know who they should be working for, et cetera. So there are a number of ideas we talked about there. The next option would be the county taking on limited code enforcement duties, so just some part of code-related activities, such as just performing fire inspections. Again, this is something that is not going as done as it should be locally. The county might be able to assist at some level. And finally, at the end of the spectrum is full county code enforcement for municipalities that are interested and willing. The county could offer to essentially take over enforcing the uniform code. So in addition to this, in the options report, we review a number of legal matters. For instance, zombie properties, property maintenance laws, serving process on LLCs that are owned by out-of-region and out-of-state owners. These are some things that are troublesome to local code enforcement officials. We talk about them a little bit and talk about some of the options that can be pursued. We looked at the option of a specialized housing or code court, which I'll talk about more in a second. And we noted some legislative matters that your state delegation can lobby on at the state level, some laws that if they passed would help local code enforcement. Finally, we have the implementation report phase for this. The steering committee that was working with us requested more detail on two options, one of which was the full county code enforcement option, the county assuming some responsibility for code enforcement, the other of which was the county-wide housing court option. So when we talk about county-run code enforcement, one of the principles we identified is it should only be done if the counties doing it would be superior to existing arrangements. The only case for doing it is if you can do it better than the way it's being done locally. So an important point is that county code enforcement is only possible by the voluntary opt-in and cooperation of local municipalities. No municipality can be forced to join in. They would have to agree to join. So the county has to make joining the program attractive in terms of cost and convenience to persuade people to join, to persuade municipalities to join. Because of this, the program would likely start small with just a few municipalities initially opting in, and it would grow as it made its case to other municipalities that this seemed like a good thing to join. But it's likely that even if it was successful and popular, it wouldn't cover every municipality in the county. Some would still choose to run things locally on their own. So our conclusion was that county-run code enforcement could deliver better service in some cases on three key issues, which are central to code enforcement: finding and retaining qualified code enforcement officials. And the county can do this by offering better wages, benefits, and a clearer career path than local municipalities currently do. Secondly, completing essential tasks such as fire inspections. So if the county had a larger full-time staff, it can provide more coverage and make sure that everything gets done as it should. And finally, tackling problem properties can be made a priority for the new program and make sure that gets more attention. So going after property maintenance violations could be more thoroughly done. The configuration we talked about would not, however, cover zoning and local ordinances. So even if the county was doing New York State Uniform Code, local municipalities would still be responsible for their own zoning enforcement, owned local property ordinance enforcement, which are separate and above the standard Uniform Code. So the conclusion we came to was a county-run program can offer a better level of service and coverage, likely at a higher cost than the currently existing arrangements. So the costs are likely to vary based on the scale of the program. As mentioned, the program would likely start out small and grow as it scales. It's likely a few towns and villages would opt in to begin with, and you would have initial costs in the low hundreds of thousands of dollars for this program. So we provide some cost estimates. Per full-time code enforcement officers, the entry-level salary I am estimating at about $55,000 to $60,000 to start, with a benefit level, which is usually 40% of salary levels, roughly. So that would bring the overall cost for each entry-level CEO to about $77,000 to $88,000 per CEO to start. You might pay some kind of premium for experienced candidates. A division leader or a director, obviously you'd have to have one, would make $5,000 to $15,000 more potentially. And you would likely need to hire at least one full-time administrative support person or secretary to support the staff there. So we looked at comparison counties. We tried to estimate what the cost might be for Chautauqua. Again, as mentioned, all of the comparison counties are smaller. They have a range of staff from 2.5 to 8 full-time CEOs. It varies quite a bit. Based on this, there's a table down there that shows some calculations. We did per capita calculation. We did a per housing unit calculation. The average for other counties, again, smaller, approaches about 500 million. I'm sorry, 500,000. Yeah.
We're still waking.
400,000 to 500,000. I'm estimating that for Chautauqua to be at scale, you would be starting at about 1.2 million for that program. And again, I would emphasize that, we're imagining this covering most, but not necessarily all municipalities. Some of the larger cities may still do their own. So funding would primarily come from the county general fund. This is the way it's done in all of the comparison counties. In all of the comparison counties, all county taxpayers are therefore paying for coverage regardless of whether their municipality is specifically covered. As you can imagine, some people feel they're being doubly charged because they have a local code enforcement program, plus they're paying into the county code enforcement program. I'm sure you hear this with other programs. That is the case, but that's the way it's operating. And those other counties have not found a better way to do it thus far. Permit fees would cover some of the cost of funding. For Chautauqua municipalities currently and comparison counties, roughly 40% of their budget is being covered by permit fees. But I estimate, to be on the safe side, somewhat more conservatively, about 25 to 40% of a county operation might be covered by permit fees. And again, part of it depends on the size of your operation. There are good reasons to keep permit fees low if possible and more affordable. This encourages people to come in and get work done, especially for residential owners. When we spoke to some of the CEOs, they said that for commercial properties, they thought we could probably, or their local municipality could probably be charging more than it is. They say, if a large, big box retailer or something coming in pays a few $1,000s in permit fees, that's nothing to them on the overall cost of the project. Obviously, that's not the same for a residential homeowner who's doing some upgrades. Another possibility is perhaps some kind of voluntary agreement with municipalities where they transfer the amount equal to the amount they're currently paying their own local code enforcement officers to the county if the county was providing it. So there's a possibility of some other kind of financial contribution as well. In the implementation report, we identify a number of steps that would have to take place in order for the county to assume some responsibility. You have to identify those municipalities that are willing. They have to cede control. The way state law is set up, at any point, local municipalities can refuse to do their own code enforcement, and it automatically becomes the county's responsibility. But the county cannot choose to take it from local municipalities. So there's a one-way flow of the power over responsibility there. Local municipalities can give it to the county cannot take it. The county must reassume its own code responsibility. Right now, code enforcement for county buildings has been delegated to the state instead, so the county can also opt out of code enforcement and give it to the state, which it has done for local county buildings. So you would have to readopt that for your own responsibility. Estimate the workload, decide where you are going to have local offices, decide how much county code officials are going to be locally available. These are, some complex issues to think about: hire staff, secure equipment, and then kind of tweak the operation and scale as it grows. So there are a number of steps. There's a bit more detail about this in the report itself. The second issue we looked at was the possibility of a county-run housing court. Unfortunately, we didn't get as much traction on this one as we did on countywide code enforcement, which I'll explain in a second. But the thing that's prompting this is many CEOs and municipal leaders agree that penalties are lacking, enforcement is an issue, they're concerned about this. And in their telling, much of the responsibility for this lies with local courts. They feel that local judges are often too close to local residents. They're concerned about local elections. They don't want to aggravate their friends and neighbors and people in the community with harsh penalties. So they're not really willing to get tough on local people. CEOs also tell us that code enforcement violations aren't taken seriously often in a court that's dealing with criminal matters. You have a drug dealer coming in on a charge first, and then it gets to somebody who's not cutting their lawn to the right height or something like that, and it's just not treated in the same way. And CEOs also feel that local judges are often unfamiliar with code law, don't understand it quite, and just don't enforce it in the same way it should be done. So one of the alternatives that was talked about as a possibility is a county-run housing or code court, something that would be kind of county-wide. A specialized housing and code court, these do exist in various municipalities around the state. Rochester has one, for example. However, we're not aware of anyone that's county-wide and with full county jurisdiction anywhere else in the state. County operations in New York State are under control of the Unified Court System, which is a state operation. You are in the 8th Judicial District, which controls the way that courts operate in your region. They would make the key decisions about the funding, structure, location, and what judges gets assigned. And the number of judges that get assigned determines what caseload the courts can handle and where they're going to hear the cases, et cetera. So that is really up to the Unified Court System's discretion. Unfortunately for us, we reached out to the 8th Judicial and Unified Court System a number of times, but although they expressed interest and agreed to talk to us, they never did end up getting back to us and answering our questions. We believe they would be more receptive to a direct reach out from the county. I don't know that they had a lot of time to speak to consultants, frankly. So they may entertain questions more directly from you. So the steps in initiating a countywide housing or code court would first of all be to start discussions. And we have a list of questions in our implementation report that should be addressed to them, which are the starter questions. How will funding be secured? Where should this court be located? Can the judge do a circuit court type operation? You would have to clarify the scope of the court and determine which municipalities will be covered. Whether it just covers code cases, whether it covers other kind of housing related cases. Other kinds of housing courts deal with issues like eviction, renter complaints, landlord issues, et cetera, have a wider scope. Who would be able to bring cases, what its jurisdiction would be, calculate the prospective caseload, and once that's done, you would have to reconvene with the Unified Court System to discuss the parameters. Depending on how the funding is done, this may require some enabling legislation from the state legislature itself that was required for Rochester's housing court, for example. So this would be a more complex undertaking. So some conclusions: both the county-run code enforcement and county-wide housing code court are possible. Both can offer improvements to the status quo. Both are likely to come at additional costs versus the current status quo. And unfortunately, both will require the approval and cooperation of authorities outside of county government. So there are veto points outside of your control if both of these are going to happen. So that's something to bear in mind. One of the things we talked about in the options phase and in the implementation report is that there are a couple of other alternatives if these don't work out. Per the options report, other possibilities include the county providing back-end support or more limited enforcement, as I mentioned. And the county can opt, in some cases, for alternate enforcement mechanisms to address some of the same issues. So existing sanitary code and health law or standard county codes can be used creatively to enforce a lot of the same stuff that's enforced under the New York State Uniform Code. Some other counties are doing this in creative ways. Some of it is kind of experimental on a legal basis, I will say. But there is a lot a county can try to do if the county wants to kind of take the initiative and be aggressive on this. And with that, I will open it up for any questions.
Oh, you gave us a lot to think about.
Yeah, it's a rich topic.
Nice presentation.
Thank you.
Anybody?
Well, no, I don't really have any questions because basically I don't have a life and I've already read the whole document.
Very good.
Because I was very interested and I
Front
want to
of the
thank.
class.
Yeah, I'll tell you, nice. Nate and Rebecca really have driven this and I really appreciate their work on it. And that committee has met many times. And as you can see, it's a very complex issue for sure. But I can tell you right now, from my past experience, I guarantee those fire inspections are not being done. I could tell you some horror stories, but I know I'm being taped, so I won't. However, I mean, was it yesterday? A building in New York City collapsed, had 138 violations, no one did anything about it. I mean, when you talk about 1.2 million to start, that's a big chunk of change. So you're really creating another department to do this. Is it worthwhile? It is. But I think we need to move ahead slowly. And one of the biggest things that I see, because of the color of my hair, is people are getting into codes. I mean, it's not a glamorous job. You and the tax collector, you guys can go out and have a cold beer at the end of the day, but you ain't got any other friends. And one of the biggest issues I see, that court issue is a huge issue.
Yeah, sure is.
We have been after a gentleman, I won't mention his name, for 14 years.
Okay.
What else can I tell you? 14 years. That stuff still ain't cleaned up. And they continue to give him breaks, and he comes in with a sob story. So until we really decide what we are going to do and act, this is great information for us. We could take a look at it, and I'm 100% for some kind of move. It's broke now. You can just kick the can if you want, but we've got to do something with it, I think. You guys sat in the meetings, and I think you heard people talk. Very frustrated. City of Jamestown just implemented where they can actually, they're writing tickets now for code violations. That's a huge step, as long as the judicial part of it backs us up.
Which doesn't happen.
Well, we have to move on this. I think we're talking about, Karen's talking about we have to move on our level, there's state level, and then like there's all kinds of laws we might have to work around. So we need to be moving in that direction, because what we're doing now is not working, and we all can agree to that. Now, where we go from here, I think you're gonna be blazing a trail now.
And this is a wonderful first step. I mean, you really
Oh, right, yeah.
put a lot of time and effort, and really, you mentioned, we were all probably city council, town people, elected officials, and we were all frustrated with the same issues. We talk about economic development and tourism in our market. This plays a big part of it, in my opinion, and the overall safety of our residents. We'll look at the report, of course, and appreciate the presentation. It was very, very interesting. And we'll take it from here, I guess. Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Tracy and Karen.
Very enlightening.
And one last thing, I think we're gonna try to figure out a way to have him flesh out those other two options that he didn't flesh out, so we can really look at the entire thing and look at, sort of pick and choose from a menu. Where do we wanna start, Because clearly that, the code, or the county taking over the code enforcement, that's,
But if you peck away at it,
Yeah.
maybe the fire.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
fire alarm, that's huge, and
Does the county know how many code enforcers or,
It's 33, I think.
There's 30, there's 33, you said?
Yeah.
It's a lot. I know in our area,
A lot of them are part-time, right?
it's part-time and they change every half a year.
Or they're shared by 3 or 4
And number of
municipalities.
violations are, if they're in the,
Shared by three different entities.
Sure.
So really, what do you get done in 4 hours a week?
Yeah,
And the requirements that New York State
Part-time.
puts on these
Yeah.
people to take these jobs is unbelievable.
Yeah, the training
For
and
the
the-
amount of
Yeah.
money they.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, it just doesn't make, yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna be the last presentation here, and I know it's late, and I'm gonna try to be really quick, really brief, and try to say the right things to reassure you that the IDA is addressing all of the recommendations that the authority's budget office made. They came up with 42 recommendations, and when I think about it, I break it down into sort of three major things, or three things that they looked at and really sort of recommended. One is sort of organizationally, because we are treating Critic, which is where the Partnership for Economic Growth lives, and CRC, the Chautauqua Region Corporation, which does our bonding, under the umbrella of the IDA. So we were treating them all as IDA. We were doing one Paris report. We were doing, and they said, no, that's not the way it should be. And that was based on a letter that we received from the authority's budget office many years ago, saying that they thought that they should be treated under as a component unit of the IDA. And they said, no, that's not the way you should have three separate corporations or three separate entities, three separate bank accounts, and you should be, again, not treating them as a component unit of the IDA. So that was really one thing, sort of organizational structure. The other is governance. There was a number of policies that we either didn't have in place or were outdated. So one of the big things that we had to do, and we only had one set of policies because we only had the IDA, what we thought was the IDA. So we had to, working with Harris Beach, they have a compliance division that's really good, worked with them to make sure that we had all the policies in place. And we had to write some new ones and install them. We had to renew or redo and restate other policies, but about 25 of them, policies and charters. And we had to do that for each organization. Again, the IDA, Critic, and CRC. So we've done that. And so that was a big lift. And then I guess the third thing I would think about is transparency. Making sure that we're complying with open meetings law, that we have the open meetings for like the loan committees. We weren't doing them in open meetings. We're doing that now. Making sure that before we go into executive session, that the chairman states why we're going into executive session, not just we're going to an executive session. And we never did that, but there's actually a sort of a script for each, and there's 6 or 7 reasons why you can go into executive session and say the right thing when you go into executive session. But also, I think a big one is our website. If you looked at the report, they looked at our website, and there was a number of things that either weren't on there or weren't posted in time. But part of it was because that website is so old that it didn't have the sort of the capability of doing all the things that it needs to do. So, and this is a huge effort, and we're all working on it, is redoing our website. And we're going to have 3 different websites, the IDA, the really Critic, the Partnership, and CRC. And working with Clever Method is a consulting firm. We've been working with them for 4 or 5 months now anyway. 4 or 5 months, and we're getting really close now where we are getting to a point where we're going to be able to launch it. But one of the key things is that not only is it intuitive and aesthetically pleasing and and all that kind of stuff, and but also that it has utility, and that is making sure that it has all the stuff on it that it needs to have in order for us to be in compliance with the ABO. So we're really close up. In the next 2 months, we'll be launching that. So there's other things that are sort of here and there, but for the most part, we've either implemented all the we've either implemented them all or are in the process of implementing all 42 recommendations.
Well, great.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
And Mark, the way I'm understanding is that the IDA meetings are always open to the public.
Oh, yeah. Always have
Anybody
been.
that's what I'm trying to say. What's the IDA doing? Why don't you stop down?
Yeah.
I'm sure.
And they're also on, we also,
Stream on YouTube.
Stream 'em.
Yep.
yeah, stream on YouTube. Yep. Yep.
I'm surprised you haven't watched it.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things too is that people ask me all the time, and I'm just going to use the city of Jamestown. They said, "What's going on in the IDA? Why don't you leave the city hall and walk down there? It ain't that far.
Right.
You could come to that meeting all the time, see what's going
Yeah.
on. Are there opportunities? I mean, I don't go to that, but
And all the agendas are posted on our
Yeah.
website. We have the public hearings posted. All the minutes are posted. All the transactions are posted, all, you know, the resolutions, all the pilot agreements are all posted. There's a lot of information on there if people really want to look for it, you know.
Right.
And it's gonna be easier, even easier to find in the future when we get that new website in place.
I thank you for doing it.
Yeah.
Anybody got anything?
I think it's really important that you came and updated us on that as part of your transparency things too. You know, I think the public needs to know, because there've
They
been
do.
a lot of comments about
Yep.
things that came up during the audit. And you've been working so hard to address all those recommendations, and we want to make sure that people know about that. I appreciate you coming here to kind of give us an update. And you alluded earlier, Mark, to the fact that Buffalo Business First came out with their report and their listing, and you guys were listed in the top of the IDAs. Chautauqua County IDA was listed in the top of Buffalo and Western New York, and want to make sure you get acknowledged for that.
Yeah.
I think that's just absolutely fabulous. Congratulations.
Yeah, we're doing good work, and, you know, it's frustrating, I gotta be honest with you, when you work so hard and you're so passionate about it. It's our lives, you know, and then to get beat up over it, that really, and I feel the worst for the staff, you know. I can take it, but they work so hard on this stuff, and then they get, you know, beat up like that. It's frustrating, because it's just not true, you know, it's not true. Chautauqua County is really doing well. And, you know, you might look around, you can always find things that you can criticize.
Sure.
But if you really look around, there's a lot of good stuff going on here. And we're gonna continue that. And we got a lot of stuff going on. I mean, we just showed you a little,
and
this
that's
is just a
really
little
good.
teeny piece of what we do
Yeah.
today, what we showed you. And so we're gonna keep doing that.
You and
And,
your staff do an outstanding job, so don't,
yeah,
don't beat yourself
Naysayers
up.
never get anything done,
yeah,
never.
yeah. So we're gonna keep going, and I assure you, we're taking this very seriously, and we're thinking about it as a tune-up. We're getting a tune-up.
Right, great.
Yep.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Great job, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for,
And finally, we just want to
Yep.
send our appreciation to the entire committee, but especially you, Kevin, for your leadership, and Elizabeth,
Elizabeth.
we appreciate your support
Yeah,
and
thank you.
everything you guys
You've
have
been
done.
great.
yeah, it was exciting to listen and be in some of the meetings that you people have accomplished, and keep going.
Yeah.
And as Mr. Wilthong said, don't let the naysayers get to you. And what a team you people
Oh,
have
yeah.
created. And it starts at the top, and you can just tell the excitement and how nice all the staff members are included and work together. So it's a great team.
Look forward
Yeah,
to
thank
things
you.
to come.
Yes,
Yep,
exactly.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Same to you.
Yeah, these aren't.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
This is Elizabeth, I don't let her get away, because she doesn't like the spotlight. This is Elizabeth's last meeting also.
Yeah, it is.
True.
It is.
We appreciate what you've done, Elizabeth,
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
and all you've
It's been my
contributed.
pleasure.
And you probably get to end on the longest planning and economic development meeting ever. No,
Thank you for that.
they already got it.
Yeah, no, that was great.
That was a great one.
It's okay. I think last month we were done in like
Thank you, Mark.
19 minutes.
Go home. Oh, here's your cookie.
You take those home.
Oh,
Yes, we did.
I second that.
poor Olivia's asleep back there.